Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. Tuesday morning, I woke still in something of a daze. As I lay in my bed, the ghost of my bra made itself felt across my chest, and its sister ghost, that of my skirt, flapped against my thighs. They distracted me a little from my dreams of kissing Anita, the fantasy that had taken up most of the night, and eventually, I decided to get up. After breakfast and a short walk to the station, I joined my friends in the train carriage, and my spirits soared when I was able to sit next to Anita. Feeling her so close after our intimacy the day before was wonderful, even though I was unable to publicly demonstrate my affection for her. She threw me a couple of wonderful smiles during the journey, while the conversation of Nikki, Sue and the others bounced around the carriage with no meaning for me. We arrived at the station, and I half expected a repeat of the previous day, with Anita holding me back for another adventure as Sarah. I would have gone along with it too, so anxious was I to spend more time in her company. It did not happen, however, and we left the station and proceeded to walk to school. I shocked myself in my first lesson. As I sat down, I smoothed across my bum, straightening an imaginary skirt to ensure my imaginary knickers did not show. I blushed and looked slyly around to see if anyone had noticed. Fortunately for me, they hadn't, or at least, did not realize the significance of what I had done. It occurred to me then that this practice stuff was beginning to get to me. Without really wanting to, I was behaving more and more like a girl. The day before it had been in the changing rooms, while trying on my new dress. Over the weekend it had been in idly trying on makeup and nail varnish of my own volition, now this. Much as it was delightful to the point of nirvana to be so close to Anita after so long admiring her from afar, I began to resolve to kill Sarah off as soon as the contest was over. If I spent any more time as Sarah than was absolutely necessary, I began to dread the effects it might have on my general behavior. The only problem from my perspective was how to tell Anita that I wasn't going to be coming along on the girls' night out. She was looking forward to it immensely, and had even bought me a dress for it. I decided to leave the practicalities of how my refusal could be diplomatically put for later. Eerily, the day was passing as normal. It was almost as if all the events since Saturday had not taken place. During the morning, there was no mention of Sarah from anyone. One or two people spoke to me about the contest, and John Ryder, the rugby player Anita had told me was entering, bragged a little about how he and Sue Freeman had made out because he had agreed to let her enter him in the contest. Between lessons in the afternoon, Nikki brought me back to earth a little, by reminding me of my commitment to go back to her house after school, and wear my formal dress to the theater, but all in all, it was almost as if Sarah had never been. Recess in the afternoon, however, was rather different. I was walking along one of the long corridors in the school, minding my own business, when I saw Chrissy in the distance, with two of her chums, obviously terrorizing some poor kid. I decided discretion was the better part of valor, and resolved to walk past them. Chrissy curiously had a very similar hairstyle to Anita's, a sort of blonde bob, but there the similarities ended. Chrissy was a good few inches taller and thicker set. She and her mates, Janet and Jackie, had boxed a younger boy in against one of the windows. She stood in front of him, with her arms folded aggressively, while they leant against the window frame on either side of the boy, blocking his escape. Luckily for me, they did not notice me as I walked by. Chrissy resented my friendship with Anita, and was rarely able to let me pass her without some snide comment. They were all engrossed in their bullying, however, and I got past them without being seen. Suddenly I heard my name called. "Steve," a strangely familiar voice called. I stopped in my tracks, reluctant to turn around. "Help me," the voice continued. I swallowed my cowardice and turned to face the group again. All four faces stared at me, the boys anxious and pleading. It took me some time to recognize the face without makeup and long blonde hair, but suddenly the realization struck me, it was Lawrence. It was him Chrissy and her gang were bullying. "Oh, it's Anita's little lapdog," Chrissy announced with a sneer, turning to face me. "I was hoping to bump into you." She turned back to Lawrence for a moment. "And if you don't want another slap, you'd best pull out of the contest, understand?" Lawrence was shaking, barely able to hold himself up. He nodded meekly at Chrissy, while Janet and Jackie leant menacingly over him. I could now see a red mark on his cheek, where I guessed one of them had planted some sort of blow. The three of them slowly walked towards me, with Chrissy, as ever, in the lead. "Now then, young Stephen," she began, maneuvering to make sure I didn't make any escape. Frightened as I was, I decided to stand my ground, both for the sake of my honor and to enable Lawrence to get away. Glancing over the shoulders of the advancing girls, however, I saw that he was still sitting meekly on the windowsill, rubbing his hand against his injured cheek. Quickly, I turned my attention back to Chrissy, who was by now directly in front of me with her henchwomen on either side. "A little bird tells me you've agreed to do something rather silly," she sneered. "I don't know what you mean," I replied, with as firm a voice as I could muster. "Oh, I think you do," she said, smiling at me. I could smell her perfume, strong and sweet. "You've gone and let Anita enter you in the womanless beauty contest, haven't you?" I thought about what the best response should be for a moment, and opted for honesty. "Yes, so what?" "So what?" she echoed. "He's asking so what," she announced to Janet and Jackie, as if they might not have heard. They both shook their heads, tut-tooting at my folly. "The thing is, Steve," Chrissy went on, "I'd be much happier if you didn't enter. It's important to me to win this contest." "It's important to Anita too," I pointed out. She was taken aback by my comment for a moment, and then smiled again. "I'm sure it is," she said. "And what has she promised you to go in for it then?" "Nothing," I replied. "I said I'd do it as a favor for her." "A favor, is it?" she went on. "I bet it's more than that. You've had the hots for her for ages, haven't you?" I felt myself blushing again, and paused for a moment before replying, "Not really." "Oh, I think you have," Chrissy went on. "Is that it then? You think the best way you can get into her knickers is by wearing them?" I blushed again. How did Chrissy know I'd been wearing Anita's knickers, or had she meant the comment metaphorically? I shook my head. Chrissy was silent for a moment, considering her next move. "Now look here, Steve, if you want to get to know a girl a bit better, I'm sure I could help." She smiled at me again, looking down towards my groin, and pushing her breasts towards me. "You agree to pull out of this contest, and I'll show you a lot more than Anita ever would. She's a cold cow, frigid even. If you want to get to know someone hot, you should go with me." Chrissy was a good-looking girl, and the thought crossed my mind for a moment about how it might feel to take her up on her offer. I also thought of the social éclat I could gain by dating her. She was popular enough to enable me to score a dozen peer group competition points by just talking to her. Loyalty to Anita, however, reasserted itself. "No, that's all right, thanks," I replied as steadily as I could. "I said I was going in for it, so I will." Chrissy stared hard and unforgiving at me. It was obvious that she was not used to this sort of rejection, and was not pleased by it. "That," she spat, "would be a very stupid decision." "Yeah," said both her henchwomen. "And people who make stupid decisions often end up getting hurt," she added, prodding me in the chest with an index finger. We stared at each other for a minute or more, each implicitly daring the other to look away first. I was petrified. These were big girls, and although I thought I might just about hold my own against any one of them if it came to it, all three at once would almost certainly overpower me. "Oh, hi, Steve," came a voice from behind them. They did not part immediately, but a figure pushed itself between Chrissy and Janet, who was on my right. It was Liz Lee, the girls' athletics president, and, as Anita and Nikki had told me on Saturday, one of the judges for the contest. Liz was 17 and the most striking girl in the whole school. She was tall, towering a good 5 inches over both me and Chrissy, with long straight blonde hair. She had swimmer's shoulders, as Anita had once described them to me, and looked as if she lived to run and throw as well as swim. Like a lower-ranking wolf in a pack, Chrissy gave way to the presence of this alpha female. "I was hoping to catch you," she said to me, smiling. She turned to the skulking Chrissy. "Have you finished with him?" "For now," Chrissy snapped, and walked off up the corridor, signaling Janet and Jackie to follow her. Lawrence moved quietly over to join us, having not moved at all during my confrontation with Anita's bane. Liz turned back to me, having watched the retreat of Chrissy and her posse. "Are you all right?" Blushing a little that she had found me being bullied by 3 girls, I glanced downwards shyly and nodded. "Good," she went on. "I was a bit worried yesterday when you weren't at school. I thought maybe you wouldn't make it for the contest." I looked up at her face. She was smiling still, and fixed me with her stare. "No, I'll be going in for it." "Good," she replied firmly. "I hoped you would. Anita told me she'd got you to agree to enter." I was really pleased. I looked at her quizzically. Why should she be pleased that I was entering? She obviously saw the puzzlement on my face, and smiling went on. "I think you'll be really good in it. You'll look good in the school uniform, I'm sure." "I don't know about that." "He does," volunteered Lawrence, from my side. Liz turned to him and smiled briefly, before returning her gaze to me. "I'm Lawrence Luce. I'm going in for the contest too," he added, seeming a little put out. Liz looked at him for a moment. "Good," she said eventually, and a little dismissively. Her eyes returned to me. There was silence for a time, and I began to feel uncomfortable under this scrutiny. "Have you picked yourself a dress out for the formal round?" she asked. "Well, yes," I responded, blushing, "but I probably won't need it." "Why not?" "Well, I've got to get through the qualifying round first, and I don't suppose I will. There'll be plenty of people who look better than me." "Oh, I don't know about that," Liz replied softly, and smiling widely again. Her eyes ran up and down the front of my body, as if assessing my chances. "I've got a feeling you'll be one of the best-looking girls there." There was another awkward silence before she continued. "Still, we'll see on Thursday, won't we?" "Do you know, it's funny really." "What is?" I asked, trying to hide the tremble from my voice. "I spent most of last year fighting to get people the right not to have to wear skirts, and now I'm doing my best to get people into them." Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.